Hello and welcome to TymTalks, the show where Tim talks and you listen. Today I am joined by interesting individual number 2 for episode 2. This person, unlike me and Sam, actually won a championship, not got to the final. Joseph, you'll tell me more about this championship. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it.
So, can you tell us, what are you famous for if the thumbnail and title already did not give it away?
So in 2018, I won the World Championships for Irish dancing in the boys category.
You don't see that quite often. And Joseph, I think we'll just go straight away with this. What made you start, or since when have you started your career, to say the least, Irish dancing?
Yeah, so it's just the first question. It was my nanan who is Irish. She was from County Mayo, and my sister as well. She danced before me, so I'd always been around the community and around the dancing from the minute I was born. From the minute I could walk, I was always in and around the setting. I used to sit at the back sometimes while my sister danced. Never took part. Never really seemed interested until sort of one day when I was about 6. My mum and my sister just said, "Oh, go on, why don't you do it? You sit there anyway, you're always there. Why don't you just have a go?" Had a go and, caught the buzz.
It's a very cultural thing, isn't it, with Irish dancing? Because you get the music, you get the style, you get the attire as well sometimes. It's all the parts of it are together. And the fact that, you gained it from your family, that it's a generational thing, actually makes it even more of a identity thing, I would imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's very cultural based. It's all about the culture of Ireland, let's say. So it's like nothing you'll ever see before you, unless you've seen the showpieces. Traditional competitive Irish dancing is more disciplined. It's, you have to back straight, arms back. You don't move your arms. Your feet have to be a certain position. It's very disciplined, very disciplinary art form, I suppose. And, if you speak to a lot of people at competitions, they're either fully blown Irish or have a grandparent or parent who's Irish.
Yeah, and you talked about the discipline factor of it. Would you call yourself maybe a sportsman because of that?
100%.
Definitely.
I mean, from sort of around 11, 12, I don't just do the dancing, I do gym work. I have to do strengthening techniques. And in fact, on like 2 months before I won the world, I started a training program which included gym work, exercises, leg and power, mostly strengthening. You have to have a very good core to keep that body straight in that discipline. I mean, it's like very, very tiring as well. It's very stamina focused. It's like we call it a long sprint. It's like you have similar intensity to if you were sprinting 100 meters over 2 minutes.
That must be incredibly strenuous in a sense, because people don't maybe pay attention too much to it, but dancing itself is, a very high activity, very high impact movement. You use a lot of muscles in your body at once, and from what I've seen, and as you said, a 100-meter sprint over 2 minutes, Irish dancing itself is very speed intensive in a sense as well.
Yeah, it's also very controlled. So there'll be pieces pieces within your routine, I'll say, that you have to be either really fast, and then other bits you have to slow down and then go back into a fast move. It's not just one pace the whole time. You also have to keep control. And that's where the best skill people come from, because they're able to do a slow beat followed by a fast beat and then some tricky bits in between. And that really separates the mid-tier to the top tier who can do that.
I would imagine it kind of reflects music in a sense. Like, I don't know how often, like, maybe in competitive scenarios do you have music in the background, but when you said about the change in tempo or change in pace, it reminded me of a change in tempo you see within music. And I guess maybe dancing is oftentimes this physical manifestation of music, but here you get even the structure of it as well. And usually that structure is very precise and maybe slightly repetitive, yet complex in the detail. And Irish dancing seems to reflect that almost perfectly.
Yeah, the great thing about the music is it's traditional music, but it's been taken by some brilliant musicians. What they've done is they take it and modernize it slightly. So it makes it a bit more complex. So it's traditional sounding music, but it's a bit more complex. So it has bits, especially the sets, which are your finishing piece that you will ever do at a major or competition, the final round that you will do. The sets are especially complex in the music. The timings are so intricate. And another harsh bit about it is any false move, so i.e. off time, slightly off beat even, can cause you to lose all your marks for that round, which means 0. Timing is the number one thing when you're getting adjudicated on. If you go off time, it's 0. False start, 0. It's very, very strict. And even like during lockdown now, I've had to learn new routines as we've gone into the new calendar, and it's extremely difficult. So I've been trying to do them online via Zoom, and I've had to, before I get taught it, I have to listen to the music myself, have an idea of the music, because there's bits and you can hear once you get it where that bit is, and you can't imagine it anywhere else. It's strange.
I find it actually kind of outstanding. Like I understand that it's a very competitive and a disciplinary action and competition. Yet one mistake to completely, gutter all your marks, all your points for that round is actually it's stressful on another dimension in a sense, because not only do you have to coordinate, stay in line as you normally would, but not everything, but quite a lot is also on the line because of that in the rule sets themselves.
Yeah. So that's why, especially in my new routines, we take no risks. If there's not any bit that's coming off clear, take it out, change it, put a different bit in. We do it so every beat is clear, because the really good sets, especially for boys, for girls, it's a little bit different. It's more about the intricacies with the feet. But for boys, a really good set dance, I'm sticking with set dances because it's the one that reflects music the most, is how loud it is, how clear the beats are. You think of your Lord of the Dance, River Dance, what makes them stand out? Those clear, concise beats, and those are what make it almost beautiful, because you can close your eyes and it sounds like a horse running on a road, or it sounds like a river sometimes flowing. If you get it really, really spot on, it is amazing to watch.
I would imagine so. I never actually got the pleasure of doing so myself yet, and now I feel quite intrigued. You were talking of disciplinary action throughout the actual process, right? And now in a different sense of trying to stick due to the new environment and learn it that way. What other experiences do you think have been aided through this build-up of discipline since, in a sense, age of 6?
So for me, it's wanting to win. I have that competitive
Nature.
gene, we'll say. That nature, just to sort of, I want to be number one. That's just my nature. For other people, it's the thought of actually going out and competing and just doing your best. They like that. That's what keeps them disciplined. For other people, it's more you get to meet loads of people. Like, I know people from America, Canada, Ireland, some people from Australia, and that's what keeps them sort of disciplined and focused, because they know that they have to be disciplined and focused, otherwise they can't do X, Y, or Z. They can't do what they want, and it's very situational to the person. So me, it's more about the competitiveness. I want to be number one, top dog, and for me, that comes from also resilience and perseverance. So I'll tell you the story. I won the world in 2018. However, the next year I suffered with multiple injuries. I had torn muscles in my groin. My knee had dislocated. I had problems in my feet, as you can imagine. I always get problems in my feet, but these were especially bad. And then I also fractured a metatarsal, sprained my foot. I actually danced with those injuries, and it was hard because I had to come back. I almost fell to rock bottom after being at the top, and I think that made me who I am today. Somebody who knows that it's going to take time to get right, but that gives me discipline because I know it's not a quick fix. I know I have to listen to corrections, do my training properly, stretch, warm up, look after my body, eat well. It's all these factors, and through all that stuff, I've really comprehended the background, not just what goes on stage.
The impact and the pain and all the physical and also emotional, in a sense, of all those injuries and then causing that downfall in 2019. I'm not surprised that you find that cultivating in your personality, in yourself. But I think it's a very good message to hold and a very fantastic message to learn early, because to build up a muscle, to build up a routine, to build up a dance, it takes, thousands of times longer than it does to strain a muscle, tear it, to injure yourself, to downhill is much harder than uphill. Yet that's why the view, or whether the flag post at the top is so much more worth it. And whatever your motive is it your competition, or wanting the journey, or meeting someone on the way there, it's all fantastic motives. And I think everyone needs to remember that, just because, especially now, everyone will take some sort of downfall, already will, right? But you just gotta keep that in mind. And for you, I feel like you really took that on fantastically well.
Thanks. So after all the injuries and all the heartbreak and everything, I managed to get to the Worlds 2019. However, it wasn't meant to be. I had a nightmare. I had missed my first round, and I was disqualified. Heartbreaking for me. So I had quite literally gone from very top to rock bottom in the space of a year. And however, like you say, that discipline, that learning from mistakes, knowing that you can come back, believing in yourself to be able to come back, I followed on with my best year to date. I then followed on by winning the All Scotland Championships, beating the world champion at the same time, the Great Britain Championships. I became 9-time Northwest Regional Champion. I won the All Irelands, which is arguably harder to do than winning the world because it's an all Irish adjudicating panel. And also at the All Ireland, I beat the world champion. So, you may get knocked down, but you come back 100 times better than you were, and you'll even exceed where you were before.
That's incredibly inspiring. Honestly, my mouth actually opened when I heard, competition after competition and, victory after victory right there. And when you hit rock bottom in that, after, winning the world literally, it must be god awful. I can, only imagine. Yet you can also think of it that way. You have the skill, that you have the skill to win the world, and now you have the experience of losing it. You learn the most from mistakes, and you got now the knowledge and the skill together. And this is the impact, as well with the discipline, with the motivation. And I'm honestly quite outstanding. Wow, nice.
Yeah. It was hard to take in, very difficult. I was in America for a week. It happened on the third day of 7 that I was going to be there for. And the rest of the time, because I was also around the venue. So seeing other people as well win around me. Like, for the first few days, I couldn't go into any of the halls. I couldn't watch any results because I was just so strucken by what had happened that I went a bit crazy. So like I was staying up till about 4 a.m. every night for that week, going to bed at 4 a.m., getting up at 6 to watch people. And I would do all nighters. I sort of lost focus temporarily, and then after it wore down, sort of about the 6th day, I phoned my mom, because I didn't actually go with my mom or dad to America. I went by myself, and I phoned them. I just went, look, I know what's happened, but cancel the family holiday because there's another major coming up in July. We'll rearrange the family holiday. This was last year as well, so I was on a long summer. So we could have gone on holiday early, got like £1,000 off, but we had to go during the normal school holidays because of the major coming up. I said, I need to do that major. I need to tell people that I'm not a one-trick pony. I can do it I can win a competition more than once, and I can do it. And I sort of went with a point to prove from that point onwards.
And wow, I'll ask you more about what happened on that major, even though I think you already kind of said, but maybe more into the details of it as well. But yeah, you had a week, you had a god-awful week, you were alone, and you did, things which weren't great for you, yet it's an emotional response. It must have been shattering because it went with anticipation of going there, of having another chance, of already having that experience and that confidence, and then it all crumbles away in the matter of hours or days. It's unsurprising, but there it is, rock bottom, yet you pulled through on the Saturday, on the 6th day or whatever, and wow.
It's quite biblical.
Almost, yes. Everybody has a cool story to tell, and I think that's the main premise of TymTalks, and why I'm enjoying this right now so far so well, because your story is certainly one to tell.
Mm. What it's done, it's made this past few months easier. Like the Worlds was cancelled this year because of coronavirus, and but it didn't affect me that much. I was a bit upset, but I knew that I'd already waited. I can wait a bit longer. I'm a better athlete. I'm physically fitter. There's always next year.
Yeah, and there's always the time, and certainly right now it's definitely the best option to take to cancel that. Yeah, and it seems like you got a lot of personal development throughout all these experiences. Tell me maybe about the details of the actual competitions themselves, because you used like a bit of terminology and which maybe some people, myself included, aren't the most familiar with. Like, how does it look like?
Yes. So, you'll pick up a few Gaelic words, well, Irish words, from just being around it. So you have something called feshers, which are your regional, not even regional, very local competitions, very small competitions. It's normally done over a weekend. It's normally only about 10 people in a competition. You're only there for an hour max. Then you've got your Oireachtas, which are regionals. So that's what we call regionals, Oireachtas. That's what it sort of means in Irish. And that'll be more where you qualify for the Worlds at your regionals. It's like me, I'll compete in the Northwest region in England. They have Northeast, Midlands, Southeast, Southwest, I think. And they also have in Ireland, they have the 4 traditional provinces of Ireland, which are Munster, Ulster, Leinster, Connacht. Do you need me to clarify where they are for you?
Actually, in my case, I know quite a bit of those 4 regions due to my own geography, but knowledge. Yet, please do, for the sake of everyone else as well.
So Ulster is what you'll think of as Northern Ireland. They have that. It's not completely Northern Ireland, but all counties in Ulster are in Northern Ireland. All counties in Northern Ireland are in Ulster, but not all counties in Ulster are in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's the northern section. Leinster is around about where Dublin is. So that sort of east coast area. Munster is the south of Ireland. So think of Cork, Kerry, and Connacht, which is where my family are from. So that's County Mayo, Galway, places like that. So it's west coast will be Connacht. So that's clarifying that. And then I'll go back to where I was speaking about the competition. So there are a few majors. So you've got the All Irelands, which normally takes place within Ireland. Great Britain's, which is in normally southern England, and All Scotland's, which is in Scotland, normally Glasgow, because it's probably the best place. You've got the North American Nationals, which take place every year. They were in Vancouver last year. They're meant to be in New Orleans this year, but they've been cancelled. I did it once in 2016 when it was in Florida. I won it that year. There is the British Nationals, which is different to the Great Britain's. Don't ask me how or why, it just is, apparently. That's what they say. Which is just everybody can get involved. It's normally in Northern England. I think that's the only difference, just where it takes place. And there's no exclusion to who can take part in the competitions. The only exclusions being for the Irish Nationals, which means only Irish can compete. That includes Northern Ireland, though they can compete. And your regionals. So obviously you only do the regional that you're in. You don't do in other regions. And then obviously the world, it takes place around the world. So it's been in Canada, America, Ireland, England, Scotland. It's been around.
Seems like it's a very big thing, you know. One wouldn't, like, I wasn't really expecting it to be such, you know, so intricate and so complex with all these different levels to it. But that's how, you know, strong it is within the Irish culture, and they place, you know, a lot of emphasis on it. So it does make sense. And like you said, there's Irish people, you know, everyone who usually does Irish dancing has some Irish heritage, and it's a worldwide thing because there's Irish people all over the world, despite, you know, maybe a small population domestically.
Yeah, that's largely due to the potato famine. That's what caused all of that.
Yeah,
So
and the
that's going
migrations
way
after that.
back. Yeah, so a lot of people ended up in America and Liverpool, mostly. So that's where it ended up over there. I honestly do not know how the Irish ended up in Australia. I don't know if they maybe got deported there as criminals, perhaps, you know, how English did. But I honestly don't know how they got over there.
Economic opportunities, I would imagine, as well, later on.
I may be thinking as well, because it's a similar country to America and England anyway. I think the influence may have just naturally spread. However, there are also countries outside your typical countries that do Irish dancing.
English.
Yeah, so there's a big community in Russia. There's and they're not even any Irish heritage. They just do it because they like the culture, and they actually competed at the Worlds. We had I think, correct. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I got a feeling that we had our first black world champion last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I could correct you, but
well, no, I'm not. I'm just not putting any concretes on it. I think,
yeah, don't quote him on that, guys.
I can't think of any in memory, but I think we've had Mexicans, Germans, French.
Impressive.
A handful of South Americans.
Nice. Do you think that the Irish dancing community is growing over the years? Or
100%.
Yeah?
100%. It is expanding, and it's growing quicker. Like this will visualize it. So when I did my first World Championships, though, you only used to dance over one day. However, last year they introduced a 2-day rule because they couldn't cope with the numbers. They had to split age groups into heats, and then, you know, sort of bring in some recall system, which meant you got through to the second day. so it didn't run behind. Sometimes, because the numbers are so big, you'll be up at 4:30 in the morning, ready to start at 8 o'clock. Your set dance, which is your final round again, won't be due until about 4 o'clock, and you probably won't get to dance it till about 10, 11. Your results probably won't be out till 12. It's a full-on day if you're at a major, especially with the sheer numbers.
That's really, it's a massive thing. It's in terms of numbers and in terms of quality and in terms of how much of your life you kind of invest into it in a sense as well. What has been the biggest competition you've been in, and do you have any numbers?
So biggest competition would be the world. I mean, boys, Irish dancing is one of those sports that's female dominated, naturally. However, there are still some incredible lads that do it. We all have great crack. Sorry, let me clarify. Crack does not mean cocaine. It means a laugh.
Yeah,
that's what you call it.
Dialect.
You say what's the crack? It's like, how you going? It was great crack. Oh, it was good fun. Everybody's so close and together as a community. So as you know, the Irish love a drink, and the bars are always packed. They keep on having us back at venues every year because the bar receipts are so high from all the drinking. It's like day drinking from as soon as the bar opens to 4 a.m. the next morning.
What would you say are the best aspects of the Irish dancing community? Because I would imagine you probably, have been in it for quite a long time, and there's definitely some details which amaze you or, you enjoy the most.
Definitely just the whole enjoyment of the setting. So you could be so we have sort of dance schools, which is where who you'll dance for, where you get your steps from. So your steps is what you dance on stage. And and your dance school you could dance for a dance school that has another dance school 5 miles down the road. But at competitions, there's no rivalry, there's no anything. You're together. A very, very good aspect it's a mix of people from different areas of the world that come together. You don't care about where you're from. It's more, are you good crack? Are you good to be around with? Are you funny? Are you, you're not bland, so to speak.
There's just a mutual love in a sense, right?
Yeah, it's more like that. Especially, I've got a good tale from last year. So that there's always a pool sometimes at venues, and best thing was, the sort of the younger people, so 14 to 18, organised a pool party one night where everybody from all aspects of Irish dancing came, from about 14 to 18.
I would imagine that's
funny. It was very good. We were so loud, we actually got kicked out of the hotel temporarily.
Okay, wow.
Because we were all singing, dancing, laughing, having fun. Yeah. Like one of my mates brought in a speaker. We just got his phone out. We just playing next song. And it was like that till about 1 o'clock in the morning till they chucked us out the pool.
That's really nice. And how many, or, maybe not how many, but do you have any long-term friends out of the community?
Yeah. So I know people from America. One of my best friends is from Ireland. I know a lot of people from Ireland. There's a couple in England, one in Lincolnshire. Not many I know from in Scotland, but I know a lot of people from Ireland, so all aspects of Ireland. So some from Dublin, one of the mates is from Kerry, one of the mates from Mayo. It's all dotted around that. You only see, it's weird because you only see each other once every blue moon. But when you do see each other, it's like you've seen them every day, your whole life.
Yeah, it's just like nothing ever happened and you just have fun there and then. And despite, the lack of time together most of the time. So it's good because you know how to hold on to friendships like that, and I feel like generally in life you are kind of set in many aspects for this kind of scenario, this kind of situation, um, that is here despite nobody expecting it, and everyone will bounce back sooner or later. But I think you got a little head start in a sense.
Yeah,
So that's
it's very good. You learn how to hold relationships well. Like, so one of my best mates, he's got a girlfriend that's from Manchester, but he lives in the south part of Ireland. Now you would think, what the hell are you thinking? Like, you're never going to see each other, but they do. They make it work, and you just learn. You just learn to go around problems, whether that be geographical or otherwise.
yeah. Joseph, back to Irish dancing and maybe your own personal experience. What would you say was the most unusual or unexpected experience or lesson that you've learned throughout, your course as a professional dancer?
Now, I'm not actually technically professional because I don't get paid.
Ah,
Um, so if I went to shows, then I would be professional. But back to your question. Um, ooh, the best lesson. It's got to be resilience and just being able to put your head down and get through tough times.
yeah, that's very, very good. And I hope that everyone gets through, these kind of lessons and these kind of
Yeah.
experiences throughout, wherever pathways that they take themselves.
It's, I always say that you should take up a sport or a hobby that allows you to really put some time and effort into it, but such that you gain good things from it. So whether that be you play football or you I don't know, you do other things, you do like pub quizzes, or you do something that keeps your competitive nature just ticking over, and it helps the mind focus in your other, let's say, more important in quotation marks aspects of life, like schoolwork, actual work, or whatever else it would be.
Yeah, that's, and I think, yeah, I agree with you kind of wholeheartedly here. It's um, everyone has a desire just to have that one thing to them, and you're lucky enough to have found it quite early on in your life. But everyone will, I think, in one way or another, and there can be multiple things as well. Um, so yeah, that's really, really good. Another question for you, Joseph, because you said that we both agree here, and we saw that it's a very, very cultural thing, this whole Irish dancing thing. But what about Irish culture do you enjoy the most, or what do you think is the most defining features of Irish culture outside of the stereotypes?
Right, so I would, if you can, listen to some of the songs that Irish musicians have let out. So the Dubliners are famous examples. Um, so they sing about the Fields of Athenry, very very famous Irish song. They actually sing it. Celtic Football Club actually sing it, and it's all about English oppression in Ireland and how the large Catholic communities in Ireland, and it was 95% Catholic, especially in the south, how they were all oppressed um, and all like almost all sort of tortured. And you sort of listen to some of those songs and you can hear the sort of pain, suffering, but also hope. And that's the thing about the Irish as well. They have great, like some of the songs, listen to the words and it really gets emotions stirring. But then they're also tell a story. The history of Ireland, if anything, is fantastic in itself.
Yeah, to persevere through massive oppression, through a nationwide military or otherwise political discrimination which hits generations. It will cultivate people, it will mature a culture as well. And the Irish nation is strong in the sense that they persevered through that, because
Very proud people they are.
I would imagine so. I can relate to that as well. This isn't about Poland, but I'm Polish and the pride that comes from resisting oppression and from having that victory in spite of all darkness is a powerful mindset to have, which sticks around as well.
Very important. Even so, like my mom briefly went to Ireland during the time that's known as the Troubles. Now that's typically Irish. They would call a whole civil war just a bit of a trouble, but that's so typically Irish because they're just so dry as well. Very dry humour people. Yeah, so it's a whole civil war, especially in the 60s. We won't go into that because that's a whole different tangent ball game.
Exactly. But if you ever want to come back, you maybe bring someone with, their own experiences and stories, then I will be more than happy to invite you once again, Joe. And you don't think about it, but conflict in the 60s, 70s, that's not too long ago, and those kind of mindsets and those kind of experiences still stick in people alive today. Same goes with, Poland as well, and the previous communism there. But we're kind of going on a tangent from Irish dancing here. But I think to keep the idea of the past in a sense, but mix it with Irish dancing, what do you say has changed about Irish dancing? Because you said that the community has grown, but do you think there were any other major developments or an evolution?
Yes. Recently, it was it was going to be the 50th anniversary of the World Championships this year. So we'd all started doing performance pieces showing an aspect of a decade of Irish dancing. So Ireland were doing the 70s, mainland UK were doing the 80s. I think America was the 90s, Australia the noughties, and mainland Europe the 2010s. And from what I gathered from doing the 80s is the style was completely different. It wasn't as athletic. You would probably see sort of the stereotypical sort of old-fashioned athletes that would, go out for fags in between like rounds and stuff. Obviously, when you're old enough, but it'd be stuff like that. And the art form would be more about it wasn't as athletic, so there wasn't as many high kicks, high jumps. It was more just about the beats and how clear the beats are, and that still remains today to an aspect. But it's more about a trick that you can pull off. You get more wows if you pull off a good trick than just having clear beats.
There's a transformation, to say the least.
Yeah, the transformations become more athletic. It's more. My best reference is probably Lord of the Dance, Michael Flatley. How athletic that became, and that sort of transformed even the competitive world because everybody needed to learn the athletic form in order to be able to transition to the show work. And the show work is ultimately what you aim for at the end of the competitive career.
Yeah, because that's where the money comes in and stuff like that. But also, I would imagine it might have become a bit more athletic, a bit more trick based as well from the beats because it grew, right? In popularity, you try to impress someone, the beat is the basis, it's the bread, yet you need to add your own kind of toppings, delicacies onto it to make it your own sandwich.
Yeah, I quite like that actually. Might use that one. And that came from people who danced in the 70s and 80s now teach the dancing. So, it's generational. So, people that have done X, Y, Z, and they have that manner of respect. They sort of know, and they have the ability and the experience to be able to go that extra step and say, try this. Let's see how that would look. They have that ability to sort of break the formula, but break it well.
Yeah, because they saw basically the history of the entire championships. You said that it's a 50-year thing, and I would imagine there's still, 60-year-old people, maybe even 40-year-old, whatever, but they still saw the vast majority of that since the champions begun in the 70s.
Yeah. So they'll probably take something from the 80s, one move, put a bit of a modern twist on it. That's how I would put it.
Yeah. It's kind of a build-up of experiences from the past and the new information and the skills of today to make, a great refined package at the end.
Yeah, it's just a build-up of experience and creativity as well, though.
I would imagine so. Joseph, on the basis of, experienced people, experienced dancers from the past, do you have an inspiration? Do you have someone who you kind of look up to, in a sense, in, the
Yeah.
Irish dancing sense?
Well, I got two sort of separate ones. So there's a competitive one. I respect what they've done competitively, and they've actually made Irish dancing their career and their livelihood. And on the flip side, there's also the showpiece aspect. So again, Irish dancing is their career, but not the competitive side, the show side. So on the show side, it's Michael Flatley. On the competitive side, you probably haven't heard of him, John Carey, but he's big in the very, very big in the Irish dancing world.
And what do you look? Oh, do you have anything specific that
So Michael Flatley was the first American world champion. Even though he's Irish, he's actually Irish American. He was born in America. He was the first American to win it, and John Carey won it 8 times in a row.
Whoa!
And was the lead in Lord of the Dance once Michael Flatley took a small step down.
That is honestly quite impressive. Do you believe that you would be able to ever place your name as high, or do you even want to? Like, what do you believe is your future in Irish dancing?
So what I know is that some people have set up their own businesses within dancing. So, you've got to get your costume, you've got to get your shoes, you've got to get trophies. So I know there's basically one company supplies your trophies. There's about 10 companies that will supply dresses, waistcoats, jackets, and dresses go for about $2,000 a pop.
Whoa!
And you only get to wear it a handful of times because of all the diamonds and all the pattern and the embroidery. It's very specific. No other tailor could make it. You have to go to these 10, and they're mostly in Ireland or England or America.
And do you think that you'll get into the industry in that way?
I don't think that way. I think I'd be more likely to teach it to a different generation. Yeah. But I know people that do the teaching bit as a secondary job, just a bit of extra cash. And they go to competitions because they love the Irish dancing. There's not much cash in it if you only just do teaching. You can't just do that solely.
But it's still something.
But it's something that you enjoy, though, as well. It's a life hobby.
And you found it out quite early on in the whole thing. Could you tell me about maybe a quick overview maybe of the career of your grandma? Because you said that she was an Irish dancing dancer.
She only learned it at school. So it was compulsory in the 1930s, which is when she grew up, to learn Irish dancing in schools. There wasn't much a competitive scene during then, or anything. The competitive scene took off in the 50s. That's when it started to really sort of, happen.
Build up.
Yeah.
But for, one reason or another, it stuck with her because of maybe, the emotional side of it or the cultural and the tradition, but it stuck with her, and it made a pretty good result 2 generations later. So
yeah. She loves it. She used to come to competitions, watch my sister. She sadly died when I was 8, so she didn't really get to see much of me in competitions. But
I'm sure she'd be extremely proud.
Thanks. She was always there. She was always asking how'd you get on. Um, you know, we would send when she was ill. We'd make videos of our dancing and then show them to her. Yeah, so it was really nice for her.
Uh, Yeah, and there's the community side of it, but also it seemed that there's also a family side to it, and overall, I know I mentioned it more than you did, but it seems like a very large part of your whole identity has come from Irish dancing in one way or another.
Yeah, so I've been to places that I would have never gone to without dancing. So I'd have never gone to Florida. I'd have never gone to Canada. I probably would have only been to Westport just because that's where my nan came from. But I'd probably never been to Dublin. I'd have probably never been to Kerry, Cork. I'd have never been there. And I'd
You
have,
get
go on.
you get these travels and you get the experiences with them as well. Could you give another example of maybe what you got to do which you wouldn't have otherwise been able to?
So my dance coach, trainer, teacher got married about 3 years ago now in Cove, County Cork. That's a small little town, beautiful town. It's built on a massive hill. It overlooks a lovely harbour. Um, and we went there. It was August bank holiday weekend. So she got married, and beautiful church. The churches, there's way too many churches in Ireland, but they're nice when you get there. Beautiful historical buildings. And Cove was actually where the Titanic
Set off
docked
from?
before it went
Oh,
so it went from Belfast to Cove and then to America. So it was the last stop before it sank, which is interesting. And so the wedding was there, and I tell the story. I always say this. You're at an Irish party when you get up at about 4 p.m. in the afternoon, go party, have breakfast, then go to sleep.
whoa. Okay, I'm just trying to like map that out in my head.
So I remember, so on the first night, the actual wedding night, it was about 6 a.m. It was just coming light when we went to bed. Had a quick half an hour nap, went to breakfast, then went back to sleep, got up about 3 in the afternoon. Then we went to the pub, watched some football, and we went back, got ready for the party after that night, and we got in about 4 a.m. that night. Yeah. So it's sort of that sort of stuff as well. And everybody were there that you knew. So it was fantastic.
It must be a heck of an experience. Are Irish weddings like huge? You said that everyone
Yeah.
there.
She's not even fully Irish herself. But yeah, it was huge. A good 300 people.
Whoa, that is huge. And European cultures aren't like too known for having massive weddings compared, maybe the Greeks and stuff like that, but mostly not really the case. But the Irish seem to set a precedent, set a bar to say the least.
Yeah. It's always a theory I say. It's not a good party unless you go breakfast then bed.
I'm not sure if I can agree with you here. I don't feel like I could very easily go to sleep in the middle of the day, but to each
Trust
their
me,
own.
you'll get used to it. A couple of them nights, and you'll be like begging.
For that kind of
Yeah.
format, to say the least.
I've got another story about So when I won the world in 2018, you have a world's party. It's the sort of thing you do to celebrate. And there were about 250 people there. We made speeches. We had like a sort of disco thing. We had the bar was very, very open, and it was a great night. And the venue closed at about 1 a.m. So it's always right. We'll off back to hotel. You're always at reception. There's about 50 of you to look intimidating. You go to reception. You say, "Do you have a private room that we can use so we don't make noise?" And then you continue the party
Elsewhere.
elsewhere, and it's just last man standing.
The vibe doesn't stop
No,
for the whole night. Ah, wow. Um, was this the World Championship in the US?
no, this one was in Glasgow. So,
Yeah, I was
well,
thinking
yeah,
about the bar. It's like,
no, no. So, yeah, it's always what's the venue like? Is the stage good? Is it big? Is there a bar? 3 boxes.
3 check marks to fill out, and
Hmm.
the Irish experience will be filled with those check marks.
Yeah, and another. Oh, I've got one more. Oh yeah, I've got another story from 2018 again. It was a good year for parties. Um, so we were in Southport for the British Nationals. I wasn't competing because I was on injury, one of about 8 that year. From that point onwards, and it was the Friday night, and we were all in the bar, and it shut at 11 p.m. At 11 p.m. Big mistake from the Premier Inn. So, in fact, my mom said, "Right, everybody, come to our room," and we all continued the party in our room. And the Premier Inn guys knocked on the door and said, "If you all don't leave, we'll have to call the police." And there were people, and once they knocked on the door, there were people hiding under beds. Somebody was like, "I'm claustrophobic." They were hidden under the bed.
Oh no.
I think I was in the bathtub. We sent one. There was like a 9-year-old who was there. They just sleep in the background. All the kids, they just sort of sleep around the whole party, and then we just sort of sent them to the door because they looked a bit tired and were like 9. So we sent the kids to the door, and then all the adults and like us, older children, we were all hiding. And best thing was the next day, somebody that we knew was in our room that night. Their room was the room opposite ours, and they got a refund for noise that they were making in our room.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
they basically profited from the party.
You gamed the system there in a sense. Oh,
Yeah, and they were going to call the police on us.
who
Oh,
says who says that Irish dancing can't be fun?
And then when they knocked on the door, one of the parents said, "Premier Inn, you've double booked," because there were so many people in the room.
Oh God, yeah. I would imagine so. How do you even fill out a room like that? Honestly, I'm not too
You
well
couldn't
versed.
move. It was the reason we got into trouble is because we were all singing. That's
Yeah.
another thing. Once the band finishes, the songs don't finish.
the
There's a
the
lot of
spirit lives on, and the voices still must
yeah.
go.
We were in again Glasgow when I won the world. We were in the. They were good at that hotel. It's the Hilton Hotel. It was a posh one. We were there, and they were setting up breakfast around us
Okay.
as we were partying. So they let us have it. Like we weren't making too much mess. We were away from sort of the main bit that they needed to set up, but they were setting up tables around us for breakfast.
As long as you're respectful about the environment, then you can have good fun and have not much trouble
It
as
was just
well.
funny though because I'd been up since about 4 a.m. that day, and it was
Oof.
4 a.m. the next day.
And then, yeah, that must have been an experience to say the
Yeah,
least.
but you don't get tired because you run on the adrenaline and the buzz. That's the thing.
Of the people, I actually can
Yeah.
agree with you here. Like the moment you're around people, even though when you're supposed to be tired, it's just fantastic. But when that ends, like when they leave or when the Yuga go,
Oh,
that's
that next day.
that next day. But for me, even that moment where you leave the room or whatever,
Yeah,
I just feel like a wave of exhaustion. It's kind of
yeah.
unreal.
That next day. Luckily, it was a free day. There was nobody on. That next day, I think I got my first hangover. I think no, I didn't throw up that one. Um, shh.
Be sure
Um,
to be pragmatic about your decisions, everyone. You gotta think about the long term and the short long term, such as the next day.
no, I don't regret anything about them because they're just. It's just great nights. It's just great memories that come from the experiences.
Exactly. And you gotta place yourself there. And who would have thunk that, you start feeling like, dancing around by being egged on by your family at the age of 6 will bring you here?
Mm. It is brilliant. That's all I can say.
And
It's costly. You don't get paid but in some way that makes it better because you know you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's a genuine experience. It's for the people, it's for the culture,
Yeah.
and not for the money.
And I think even sometimes amateur sports people who don't get paid, I think, are more committed than professional. Because at the end of the day, professional sportsmen, I'm thinking footballers, can sit on a bench, take 50 grand a week, and they won't do out.
Yeah,
But amateur sportsmen, they have to work hard because that's what gives them their satisfaction.
exactly. But a financial incentive is not corrupting as well. Like you can be paid and still have
Yeah.
that drive as well. The football industry is a completely different story, and I think a story for another day. Yet,
Mm.
yeah, it could have a bit more of a caveats of maybe the right incentives not being balanced correctly.
Yeah. Well, it keeps it family centered and family and friend centered.
Yeah, and a very cultural thing. But I think that's a pretty good point to end it. Irish dancing itself, it might seem a bit foreign to most people. I myself haven't heard much of it at all. Like some very minor popular culture references and stuff like that. Yes, yeah, despite the fact that Ireland isn't even massively far away. But I feel like I learned quite a lot, and it sounds foreign, yet it is extremely personal and extremely, open in to everyone in a sense. As you said, no, it's a worldwide thing, and it's very relatable to have a good music, a good community, a good laugh or crack, as you say. It's just part of human nature, and Irish dancing is just one fantastic representation of that, and you seem to thrive in it well, and I'm very glad that you do, and I'm glad that you joined me here at this, today's
Thank you.
Tim Talk.
Thank you. It's been a good experience. Never done one before.
It,
Definitely take away the experience.
it was an absolute delight, honestly, and maybe in the future you could tell me more about
Yeah, I could
individual
do.
Irish experiences.
Yeah, I could do the history of Ireland if you fancied one of them.
we could,
That'd
but
be a good 2 hours.
two-part right there. And it was an absolute pleasure for myself. But if anyone else wants to ask you a question, feel free to go into the comments and ask Joseph about his experiences as a non-professional yet world champion of Irish dancing. And thank you for joining me once again.
Thanks. Loved it. I hope all future ones are a success.
I hope so too. This has been Tim Talks, where Tim and Joseph here talked and you listened. Have a nice day, audience.